Hello, and welcome to Eastern Roman history. The Empire of Trebizond is the historiographical name for the breakaway state of the Eastern Roman Empire, which was ruled by the House of GrandComemos, the direct descendants of Andronicus I Comnenus, who ruled the Eastern Roman Empire from 1183 to 1185 AD. In AD 1204, Andronicus I's two grandsons seized control of the Pontic coastline, and they and their descendants ruled their little empire from then until AD 1461, when the Trapezuntine Empire was conquered by the Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed the Conqueror. In that time, the GrandComemi held Trebizond for 11 generations, and this list will examine all of their emperors from worst to best. Andronicus III GrandComemos. While the fratricide of Romulus bore the fruit of Rome, the fratricide of Caracalla bore universal citizenship, and the fratricide of Andronicus III Palaiologos bore the last notable revival of the Eastern Roman Empire. The fratricides of Andronicus III, perpetrated against his brothers, brought nothing of gain to the Trapezuntine Empire and its people, nor himself, as he died of the Black Death, having reigned for just 20 months. Irene Pagin. Irene was the empress of Basil GrandComemos and bastard daughter of Andronicus III Palaiologos. Jealous of her husband for carrying on an affair with another Irene, she poisoned her husband and seized the throne for herself. However, as an outsider, she did not last long in power and was chased out by her sister-in-law, Anaku. She fled and returned home, having initiated a civil war. Fodora GrandComemos. Fodora GrandComemos was a usurper against the rather mediocre Emperor John II. Despite seizing the throne, she proved no more capable of ruling the empire than her brother, and within a year fled into exile, never to be seen again. Anaku. Anaku had successfully ousted the interloper Irene Pagin. However, in doing so, she brought the Empire of Trebizond into a state of civil war, probably during which the provinces of Eritrea declared independence, for it is from the 1330s and 1340s that a Prince of Gothia emerged in the Crimea. Michael GrandComemos. Michael GrandComnemos's reign started with him being forced to hand over most of his powers and authority to his rescuers. A popular revolt allowed him to imprison them and exile his son, but once he became emperor, the old man struggled with the many challenges facing Trebizond. The Black Death, Turkish invasions, and the rising power of Genoa in the Black Sea left Trebizond weak, devastated, and divided. In great infamy, he had to release the Megas-Duke, whom soon afterwards deposed him and placed his nephew Alexios III on the throne. It was a small consolation that his deposition marked the end of the Trapezuntine Civil War. In 1355, he returned from exile to reclaim the throne, but he could gather no support from his former subjects and withdrew once again into exile. Andronicus II GrandComemos. Andronicus II GrandComemos only reigned for 3 years. Almost nothing is known about his reign, other than he lost the port city of Sinope to the Turks, which was a significant blow to the empire. It was never recovered, and with its loss, we might say that Trebizond was finally demoted to a minor power of the Pontic coast. George Comemos. George, known as the Vagabond, held the throne of Trebizond for 14 years, but despite what little we know of his reign, he seems to have proved so unpopular amongst his court and his people that on a tributary mission to the Ilkhanate and its Mongol Khan at Tabriz, he was betrayed by his courtiers and deposed. The Vagabond, as he was now called, returned during the reign of his successor, John II, and led a rebellion against the emperor to retake the throne. He was beaten and fled into exile. George had such a dramatic fall from grace that he is the only emperor from the imperial family to be humbly and simply referred to as George Komnenos, the Megas, stricken from his name. John II GrandComemos. John II GrandComemos, known as Kalou Ioannis, which translates as Handsome John, or John the Good, was the last of the emperors of Trebizond to use the traditional imperial title of Emperor and Autocrat of the Romans. After AD 1282, he adopted the new title of Emperor and Autocrat of all of the East, Iberia, and Eritrea, while abandoning the GrandComnenoi claim to the imperial throne in Constantinople. This move, which John II himself had been fiercely reluctant to do, did lead to a warming of relations between the two Eastern Roman empires. Probably as a result of the deposition of his brother, the beginning of his reign was rife with political instability, with a successful usurpation by his sister Fodora and a failed usurpation by George the Vagabond. Much of the theme of Lazia was lost to Georgia, and the Turks conquered Chaldea. When he died, the western half of the realm was beset by the Turks. Manuel II GrandComemos. Manuel II was an 8-year-old boy when he became emperor, after the premature death of Andronicus III. It was not long before his ambitious uncle, Basil, having escaped the fratricides of his brother, returned to Trebizond from Constantinople and arrested Manuel II. The emperor was murdered by him soon afterwards, setting the stage for the Trapezuntine civil war. John III GrandComemos. John III was brought to the throne by a military and political coup supported by the Genoese against the faction in power, represented by Empress Anna Anaku. After she was eliminated, John III's regime was closely tied to the fortunes of the Megas Duke, John the Eunuch, because of his young age. Once the Megas Duke died, the emperor's father, who had been languishing in prison, was released by the imperial guard, who then deposed John III before sending him into exile. Alexios V GrandComemos. Alexios V was a fairly ephemeral emperor, and in fact his acknowledgement by historians as one of the emperors of Trebizond has only been realised in recent decades. His brief reign was an attempt by John IV to give the throne to his nephew and avoid his brother David becoming emperor. David deposed Alexios V after a few months of rule and became the last emperor of Trebizond. Alexander GrandComemos. Alexander was the youngest son of Alexios IV and spent many years during his brother John IV's reign trying to regain the throne, having been designated his father's heir because of a falling out between Alexios and John. In circa 1451, the two brothers reconciled, and Alexander became co-emperor. Little is known about his time as co-emperor, although Alexander died before John in 1459. It was Alexander's son, Alexios V, who inherited the throne from John IV, continuing the line of the House of GrandComemos. John I GrandComemos Oxoukos. John I GrandComemos ruled for only 3 years, but was an important link in the continuity of the empire. Despite his youth, his co-emperor Andronicus I arranged things so that John's succession was a smooth one. Little is known about his reign other than he died during a polo game and was succeeded by his far more notable brother, Manuel I. Alexios IV GrandComemos. Quarrelling with his father and defeated by the Genoese, his early record as emperor was quite poor. He did have some successes diplomatically. Like father, like son, his heir, John, quarrelled with his father and fled into exile. Alexios made his younger son, Alexander, co-emperor. When John returned to usurp the throne, Alexios IV marched out to fight him in battle, but was assassinated by his nobles. David GrandComemos. David GrandComemos tried his best to prevent the fall of his empire. He contacted Western powers to apply pressure on the Ottoman Empire, and built a coalition of eastern Anatolian states to confront the Turks. Unfortunately, there was little the West could do, and the Eastern coalition was easily bought off or eliminated by the conquering Turks. When it came to the siege of Trebizond itself, David successfully held the city against the Turkish vanguard, but in the face of a relentless and bloody onslaught, surrendered his city to the Turks to spare the lives and livelihoods of his subjects. He and his family were later executed by the Ottoman Sultan. Basil GrandComemos. Basil escaped the massacre of his brothers by Andronicus III. He deposed his nephew, which caused a revolt by his nephew's supporters, which he suppressed. While generally effective in foreign affairs, he was not a popular emperor, and the seeds of the coming civil war had already been sown. His demise came when he married Irene, the daughter of Andronicus III Palaiologos, forming an alliance with the Romans, but the couple's relationship soured and Basil took a mistress, another Irene. The Empress Irene Pagin, in revenge, poisoned Basil and seized the throne of Trebizond for herself. John IV GrandComemos. Seizing the throne from his father, John IV had the daunting task of keeping Trebizond safe against the rising power of the Ottomans, local Turkmen invaders, and his own family members. Through his careful leadership, he not only outlasted his counterpart in Constantinople, but kept Trebizond safe from annihilation for over 30 years. Manuel III GrandComemos. As the second son, he was never meant to rule the Trapezuntine Empire, but he proved himself adequate to the difficult role of ruling the empire for 27 years. He kept Trebizond largely out of the colossal war between the Ottomans and Tamerlane. He restored good relations with the Venetians, but was continually at odds with the Genoese. However, his favouritism for a page of humble origin caused his own son and the nobility to rebel. He was victorious against the rebels, but died soon afterwards in March 1417. Andronicus I Gaidon. The guardian of the empire, Andronicus I defeated a massive Turkish invasion that sought to annihilate the still nascent empire of Trebizond. Not only this, but he was able to free Trebizond from Turkish tribute. He also supported the cult of St. Eugenius, making him the patron saint of the empire of Trebizond. While Andronicus was unable to expand his empire in a meaningful way and was later forced to resume Turkish tribute, he had saved the empire from destruction. Alexios I GrandComemos. Alexios I GrandComemos was the founder of the empire with his brother. In 1204 they hewed out a new empire for themselves from the Pontic region of the old, once their ambitions to capture Constantinople from the Latins had been thwarted. They were the first to stake their claim to the throne and dominion at Constantinople. However, these early ambitions were cut short, and the empire of Alexios GrandComemos was limited to the Pontus and the Crimea, establishing a state and a successor of the Eastern Roman Empire that lasted for 2.5 centuries. Alexios III GrandComemos. Originally named John, Alexios III GrandComemos was a young man when he became emperor, and presided over the longest reign in the empire's history, ruling for 50 years. He healed the wounds of the Trapezuntine civil war, suppressed the rebellion of Megas-Duke Nikitas, and he won several victories against the Turks who invaded his empire. He tried to play Venice against Genoa in the contest between the merchant republics in their commercial rivalry in the Black Sea, with limited results. He allied with the Turkmens and Georgians to secure the borders of Trebizond. Furthermore, an expedition by Michael Palaiologos to claim the throne proved to be a dead letter. He established many monasteries and effectively administered the empire throughout the second half of the 14th century, restoring stability to an empire that had been nearly destroyed by a decade of civil war. Alexios II GrandComemos. Alexios II GrandComemos was only 14 when he became emperor, yet he proved a man of action very early in his career by defying the diplomatic machinations of the Emperor of Constantinople for a marriage alliance with Georgia instead. He defeated an invasion by the Turkmens and was victorious against the Genoese when they threatened to pull their trade out of Trebizond without further concessions. But not before the Genoese set fire to Trebizond, causing great damage to the city. Alexios II extended the city walls of Trebizond to protect the harbour after Turkish pirates set it ablaze. Alexios II organised a city watch to improve order and security in the city and its harbour. The coinage was reformed. He was also a patron of the arts and science. After 33 years as emperor, he died of the Black Death, having heralded a golden age in the Little Empire's history. Manuel I GrandComemos. Manuel I GrandComemos is one of the most shadowy of the already obscure Trapezuntine emperors. However, from what we do know of his reign, he reconquered the important city of Sinope and extended the diplomacy of Trebizond to the Crusader kingdoms and the Eighth Crusade. His conquest of Sinope made Trebizond the apex naval power in the Black Sea. He started minting silver Trapezuntine coins, which would mark out the Little Empire from all of its rival splinter states for being the only other state to support its own monetary system in addition to the Nicaean Empire. Not only that, but the Trapezuntine silver asper was a hard currency for the region and was circulated widely beyond its own borders. He was a patron of the arts and rebuilt the Hagia Sophia in Trebizond. His successful reign was the only occasion after the reign of Alexios I where one could describe the Empire of Trebizond as a genuine regional power. And this has been Eastern Roman History.